Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving right into a fascinating analysis that challenges a pretty huge assumption. What if the religious rituals we perform day in and day out actually have almost nothing to do with our true spiritual direction in life? The source material we're unpacking today totally flips the script on how a lot of us approach faith, suggesting we might actually be completely misaligned without even realizing it. So let's explore what it genuinely means to align the soul.
You know, the author of our source text kicks things off with a dilemma that I think is incredibly relatable. They point out that in our modern world, people are praying like never before, we're fasting way outside of just Ramadan, we're doing the pilgrimages, we're wearing all the right religious labels, and yet, that deep, unshakable inner peace, it just keeps slipping away. It leaves us wondering why our spiritual practices feel less like a profound connection and, well, more like they're just running on a fading dopamine loop. You get that momentary high, a quick spiritual dopamine hit, but then boom, you're right back to feeling totally lost.
Section 1. Finding Your True North. Subtitle: Escaping the Trap of Assumptions. Let's challenge how we actually read and internalize spiritual texts.
So, the source argues we bring a ton of baggage into our reading, and there are three massive blind spots exposed here. We read warnings and immediately think, well, I'm already in the right group, so this obviously isn't for me. Or we just assume that because we identify with a monotheistic label, we couldn't possibly be worshiping other gods. But as the author brilliantly points out, why would Scripture spend so much time warning people who aren't even reading the book? I mean, if it's only ever meant for quote-unquote others, the text basically becomes useless to the actual reader.
To really drive this home, the source highlights a specific verse from Surah Ash-Shura. It asks, do they have associate gods who have laid down for them a religion without the permission of God? Now, rather than reading this as some dusty condemnation of an ancient group, the text argues this verse is actually a mirror. It's an urgent, right-now question directed squarely at the reader, demanding we check what our internal compass is truly pointed toward.
Here's the crucial takeaway. Religion in this context isn't just the title you tick on a demographic form. It is your orientation. If your daily compass is relentlessly pointed toward chasing money, climbing the corporate ladder, or obsessing over status at the expense of doing the right thing, well, those distractions literally become your actual associate gods. Whichever path you are actively orienting your life toward, that is your true religion, regardless of the label you happen to wear on the outside.
Section 2. The Freedom of Choice. Subtitle: The Ticking Clock of Free Will. Let's see how this builds into the very physics of our existence.
Think about the cosmos for a second. According to the analysis, the universe operates on an unbelievably strict set of rules. We are talking mathematically precise down to the millisecond. In the physical cosmos, if a planet or a force has even the slightest deviation in its required orientation, the result isn't some gentle course correction, it is immediate annihilation. The universe simply does not tolerate deviation.
And that creates a truly massive contrast. When you compare the rigid gears of the universe to the hourglass of humanity, we see this unique, incredible exception: free will. Our freedom to choose our orientation, even if we choose the entirely wrong one, is only permitted because we've been granted a fixed timeline. The source notes that God has allowed us the specific window of time to use our intellect and our intuition to figure out the truth before final judgment. We aren't immediately vaporized for our mistakes, which is great news, but it also creates a massive sense of urgency to figure things out.
But look, just because we have free will doesn't mean our actions are consequence-free right now. The text actually compares wrongdoing to a software bug. Doing wrong is like inserting a malicious bug into a mathematically perfect system. It essentially triggers a blue screen of death in our souls. Since the default state of the universe without maintenance is chaos, our wrongdoings act as errors that pull us completely out of tune with reality. They crash our internal system, disconnecting us from the harmony of the universe.
Section 3. The Illusion of Labels. Subtitle: Religion is not a football team. Let's confront a major delusion in modern spirituality.
The source material takes this head-on, the trap of confusing our social identity with our actual divine connection. We so often treat our faith exactly like a sports rivalry. We buy the merch, we wear the fashion, we argue endlessly with rival groups online, and we proudly wave our team's flag. But true religion, as an orientation as opposed to just an identity, is simply about living a righteous life and avoiding wrongdoing. And the text makes a really provocative point here. Because judgment is based purely on actions and not social labels, a non-Muslim whose actions align with doing good could actually be viewed better in God's eyes than a Muslim who consistently does wrong.
Which brings us to a pretty harsh truth about rituals. We often mistakenly believe that dressing a certain way or performing endless prayers basically gives us a free pass. But the author stresses that, say, praying while simultaneously cheating or harming others is totally out of the question. Prayers and rituals are not the religion itself. Actually, scratch that. It's more like they are simply the tools and the methods we use to ask for protection and guidance so that we can remain in the correct orientation out there in the real world.
Section 4. Reclaiming Inner Peace. Subtitle: Fixing the Connection Here and Now. Let's dive into how we actually repair this disconnect.
We have to stop just patiently waiting for the afterlife to finally find some joy. To explain how we find our way back, the text uses the blueprint of Adam. Think about his story for a second. First, there's a test, like the forbidden tree. And the author notes the tree itself wasn't bad, it was just a boundary. Then comes the error, eating the fruit. This immediately results in deep frustration and a total loss of divine connection, leading Adam to do chaotic things like cover himself with leaves. But step 4 is realignment. Adam fixed his mistake and got his connection back. When we feel internal chaos and negative thoughts, that is our built-in signal that we've committed an error and urgently need to change our track.
It basically boils down to a mathematical equation for the soul. Doing wrong mathematically takes us away from our true north, and that results in immediate sadness and frustration. Doing right connects us to inner peace. This proves that the temporary peace we get from just mindlessly performing rituals without actually fixing our daily actions is often just that fading dopamine hit we talked about at the very beginning, rather than a true sustained spiritual connection. The author presents a really beautiful analogy here. This divine guidance, it's like a radio broadcast that is playing 24/7. We absolutely don't have to wait for the hereafter to hear it. We just have to tune our internal receiver today. Instead of suffering through life and forcing ourselves to just grin and bear it until we die, we need to realize that tapping into this true orientation changes our lives for the better right here, right now. Honestly, it is the only way to bring back our lost joy.
So the crucial point the source leaves us with is a profound redefinition of the divine. God is not just a rigid set of rules or some distant entity we only ever contact when we need a huge favor. According to the text, God is the very essence of happiness, of joy, of liberation and freedom. And the terrifying reality is that when we lose our true north and stray from that divine orientation, we don't just lose a religion, we lose our happiness, our joy, and our ultimate freedom.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought based on everything we've looked at today. Take a really hard look at your daily actions. Are you just chasing the dopamine of a religious identity and playing for a social football team? Or are you ready to fix your internal bugs, step away from the superficial labels, and realign your soul's compass to true north? The choice, at least until the clock runs out, is entirely yours.